Hi, preschoolers and kindergartners. This is Miss Becky here to tell you another great story from our Bible. This time it's found in the book of Luke, chapter 24. But before we start, I want to ask you a question. Would you recognize Jesus if he came up to you? Good one, huh? I'm not sure I would. I don't know. That's a good question. But you know what? In our story today, he actually, at first, prevents the two men in our story from recognizing him. But we'll see what happens at the end. So beginning in Luke, this is after the first Easter. Jesus is risen from the dead. A lot of people had come to Jerusalem because it was a special time of the year for a special meal called Passover. But also what happened was Jesus was crucified, and it was our first Easter. So our story begins by two men leaving Jerusalem and traveling back to their home in Emmaus. And the Bible tells us it wasn't very far, but they walked just like in our Bible everybody did, unless they had a donkey or a camel, but most people just used their feet. So as they were walking down the road to their home, they were arguing and they were talking to each other. Sometimes they would say something about what one man saw and the other man would disagree. But as they were walking and talking and arguing, someone walked up alongside them. And they had never met him before. They didn't know who he was, but he was friendly. And he asked the question, "Guys, what are y'all arguing about?" And these two guys looked at him like, "Where have you been? Were you not in Jerusalem where all the things that happened about us people being crucified, and in this case, our Jesus being crucified? But the great thing is he rose from the dead, and he's alive just like they told us he would be, just like he said he would be." And this man listened a while, but then as he was talking to the two men on the way home, he started telling them things that they had never heard before. And one of the things was he told them about Isaiah and about Moses, predicting that a baby, a very special baby, in fact, God's baby, the Messiah, would be born one day and grow to be a wonderful man who was God the Son, Son the God. We've talked about this before. And they listened to him and they learned so much from him. And one thing he told me is, "God sent me. And he loves you so much." Well, they weren't sure about that. They didn't know this man. They didn't recognize him. In fact, we didn't realize they were being prevented from recognizing, but they liked to listen to what he said. And as they walked and almost got home, they said, "Oh, hey, why don't you come home and have supper with us, and you can spend the night, and then you can go on your way." Well, Jesus agreed. And as they got in the house, they made the supper, they put the food on the table, and the first thing Jesus did was take the bread, the loaf of bread that was there, and he thanked God for the bread and for the food. And when he tore the piece of bread off to share with the men, immediately they recognized who he was. I bet there was like a big surprised look on their face, like, "I know you. I know who you are." But as soon as they recognized him, Jesus disappeared. So they were so excited after that point, they couldn't keep it in them. They decided they would go back to Jerusalem to tell Jesus' special helpers or his disciples and the other people that knew about him that he was alive, to just tell them exactly what they found out, what they saw, who invited them, came to their house and ate supper with them. And they shared all this excitement with them. I have a picture that you might want to look at if you can see it. It's the two men and Jesus in the middle. And he's telling God loved us and sent his son. Well, I'm glad for this story because one day we're going to get to meet Jesus, just like these two men got to meet him. But I have a couple of questions I want to ask you to see if you were really listening. So the first one is, what were the men doing when Jesus joined them? Now, I think you probably know this answer. They were walking and talking and arguing, right? And what did Jesus teach the men? Now, that's a hard one, but I think you can figure that out with mom and dad. And the third one is, what did Jesus do that helped the men recognize him? Remember, at first they didn't recognize him, but by the end of their time together, they did. And what happened when they did recognize him? And the last question is, what did the men do after Jesus disappeared? So think about these questions, answer them with mom and dad, and go open your Bible that you have. Some of you have a Bible, or you can use mom and dad's Bible, and look up Luke 24, verse 13, and read the story about the two men on the road meeting Jesus. Next time, see you soon. Love you all and miss you so much. I'll be glad when we can come back to Sunday school and be together. Have a great day and a great week.